everyone, I'm Jenna.
And I'm Mark. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Cincinnati Zoo Tales. Jenna, I'm not even going to try and build suspense today. If you clicked on the thumbnail and you're listening to this episode, you know what we're talking about. We're talking elephants. I'm pumped. We've got our biggest brand new elephant habitat opening up next summer that we're really excited for. We just brought 4 new elephants in. So we've got a whole group joining us today. We're really excited. We're being joined by Eric Dooning, who's one of the elephant keepers at our zoo here in Cincinnati. We're being joined by Carlos Esteban, who is joining us from the Dublin Zoo, actually, where our 4 new elephants just came from. So we're pumped to have Carlos here. And we're also being joined by Christy Eisen, one of our keepers here at Cincinnati as well. So we've got a full house today. Thank you guys so much for all joining us. Like Jen and I like to open up these episodes kind of hearing a little bit about each one of you guys, kind of what brought you to where you are today, especially what got you involved with elephants. Eric, I was going to kick things off with you. What brought you to be an elephant keeper here at the zoo?
Actually, I graduated from the Zoo Academy, which is the high school program here offered for juniors and seniors through Cincinnati Public Schools. And it got me my first taste of working in a zoo and knowing that that's the career I wanted. I bounced around for a little bit. I spent time in our African veldt, working with rhinos and zebras and things like that. I spent a bit of time working in our bird department. And then finally something opened up in the elephant program, and I've now been there for almost 15 years.
It was like 1940 when you started. I think it's really cool that you're one of our Zoo Academy graduates, and like these days, you know, you have to go through all of this internships and volunteering and things to get into the zoo world. Like, did you find it difficult to get started, or were there openings and they kind of hired you guys based on like attitude? Or, I mean,
I think the benefit of the Zoo Academy, especially then, was it was just kind of a door into the zoo. Mm-hmm. It opened up, they were called labs, but basically experiences working for 3 weeks or so in multiple buildings. It got to build relationships with keepers. It gave you a chance to see things that you liked or wanted to work in, and maybe the opposite. Maybe you worked with something and realized it's not what you wanted to do.
Which is just as valuable, right?
I think so, yeah. But no, and it admittedly was probably a little easier then to get that outlet in, and keepers to get to know, you know, if you wanted to do this, your work ethic and things like that. I got a few part-time seasonal positions directly from that, which then long-term led to a full-time position.
so it's almost like you got an early start on internships, essentially, when you're kind of in Zoo Academy, because you're getting the networking, you're getting the figuring out what you like and what you don't like, and getting to know people and the animals.
I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, we've had an episode with one of our Zoo Academy students. If anybody wants to hear more about Zoo Academy, it's a really cool opportunity. So you've been with elephants for like 15 years now.
Yes.
You used to be a bird guy. What made you get into elephants?
I just originally saw it as such a unique challenge. You know, I'd never worked with anything like elephants, and they were just everything about elephants and their care is different from every other animal group in zoos. And I really just thought it was the experience that I just kind of wanted to see how it'd go, and it stuck, and I'm still there.
I feel like there's so much we can talk about with elephants. I just want to throw it out there because one of my favorite things about my career here is that I started working with you as a seasonal when you were kind of new to the elephant department.
Right.
And back then, we worked what we called free contact. So we were able to share space with elephants and go in, and it was like the best thing ever because you were scooping poop next to Mai Tai, an elephant. You could just go and hug her trunk and like have the best time ever. And things have changed for the better and probably made it harder a little bit as an elephant keeper with, you know, protected contact, which I hope one of you guys can explain a little bit more later. But I just had to throw that out there. I knew Eric in the elephant house way back when, my very first seasonal jobs here. And it was just so much fun. Elephants are really, really special. So I don't blame you for wanting to work with them.
Definitely, I love it. Carlos, what about you? What brought you to be an elephant keeper in Dublin Zoo? How'd you get to where you are? And second off, are you enjoying your time in Cincy so far?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. And well, it's kind of a funny story because when I left school, so I'm I'm gonna try and keep it short. But when I left school, I actually started studying computing. So it was a totally different thing
Yeah.
for me. But after a couple of years, I realized that I wasn't enjoying it and it wasn't my thing. So it took me like a good few months after that to realize that I wanted to spend my my life working with animals. And then I started doing these weekend courses just in Madrid Zoo back in Spain with about birds, great mammals, great apes. And after a few of them and doing some volunteering here and there, well, I thought this is my thing now, and I just and I thought it was going to be a good thing to try and get into this industry. So I started. First of all, I started studying biology, and at the same time, I had to get a job because I had to pay for all my studies, you know. And so I was studying biology and working at the same time. I did that for 3 years, but it got to a point that the job was taking too much time of me, and I wanted to really dedicate more time into animals in general. So I quit my job, and I did back in Spain. I did this course. It's like a zookeeper course, or some sort of preparation to become a zookeeper. That lasts for a little bit more than a year. Some part of theoretical classes and part of practicals, as kind of an internship.
Okay.
I was a kind of an intern. So I did this course, and after that I stayed around Madrid Zoo, and they offered me a job in the education department. So I did that for a couple of years, just waiting for my opportunity to cover sick leaves or things like that. It never came up for 2 years. So suddenly there was one day that there was this head keeper from another zoo in Spain, down south, in Estepona, Malaga. It's called Selva Aventura. He visited Madrid Zoo, and he was looking for an elephant keeper.
Oh.
And look at me, I was offered the job. I had an interview. I went down there. I drove 6 hours for the interview.
Wow.
And finally I got the job. So I was actually, before I became an elephant keeper, I was kind of a primate guy. So I used to, everything I was doing, all these courses we were talking about, the volunteering was related to mainly great apes. And but when they offered you a job with elephants, you just can't say no. So
Yeah.
I took my chance, and I went down to work and live in Malaga, in Estepona, and I stayed there for 3 years. But I wanted more. So I was really into it. It got to a point that I was looking at all these videos of training elephants all around the world, different places, Dublin Zoo, in Chester Zoo in UK. So I was kind of getting into the elephant world, and I wanted more. So I did apply for a job in Blackpool Zoo in UK, and I got it. I went there and I worked there for another almost 3 years. That was before, during, and after the pandemic. And after that, I went back to Madrid for almost another 2 years. But I still had this feeling that I could learn more, and I still wanted to travel around a little bit. So Dublin Zoo got in contact with me. They told me they had this huge project moving 4 elephants to Cincinnati Zoo.
Wow, you were hired specifically kind of for this
Well,
move.
they wanted like a experienced elephant keeper to join the team, but obviously they had this big. They were aiming for this big project, no. So again, I couldn't say no. So I accepted, and I moved to Dublin, and I've been there for almost 2 years now. I'm really glad that everything went well, and I have to be very thankful to Dublin Zoo and Cincinnati Zoo for sending me here and being able to experience the elephant world in probably quite far from home now. And again, as just answering to your second question there, I'm enjoying it a lot here. The team is being really nice to me. And we're having a good time. I think the elephants are doing really good here in their new house. And I'm hoping I can see them just grow and just do their thing here in Cincinnati Zoo from now on.
Yes, definitely. Hopefully you can come back and visit again
Hopefully,
and see
yeah.
them. All right, Christy, tell us about how you got into zookeeping.
Yeah, I was one of those, I guess I always knew I wanted to be a zookeeper. I went to elementary school career day dressed as a zookeeper.
I love it. That's awesome.
And then in college, we had a family day at the Columbus Zoo because I grew up a little bit further north. And I happened to see somebody walking around in muck boots, and I was like, I see you. I went and stopped her, and I asked if they were hiring interns. I guess it was right place, right time kind of thing. So it was the head keeper of their Asia Quest department, and she immediately gave me her email and pulled my application and hired me, and that was also their elephant intern. So I kind of accidentally fell into elephants.
Okay.
Because even when I applied for the internship, I had originally applied for their Congo department because I just really loved okapi. So elephants was on accident, but it was a good accident. So I was an intern at Columbus. I was a seasonal for a couple of seasons. I got a really good, I think, base of knowledge there. And then I got hired at Albuquerque, where I worked for, I think, almost 3 years. I got to experience a herd birth, which was really cool. So we had a calf. I got to help raise a calf. So that
How
was
many
really
elephants
good.
did you have in Albuquerque?
We had 6, and
Okay.
then I got to help with moving a bull to another facility, and then we had a calf born. So it was just kind of like a constant 6. but-
Influx, yeah.
yeah. So it was a really good experience. And so then when I applied here, they knew that they were expanding their elephant program already. So I was very lucky that I had that calf experience and elephant moving experience. So I think that worked out in my favor.
Hopefully that calf experience will be very useful here in a few
Yeah.
years. We would love to have some
Yeah,
babies here.
very
at
shortly,
Cincinnati Zoo.
hopefully.
Except for the 22-month gestation
well.
thing, you know. But yes, shortly.
Yeah.
I don't know, you had experience at Columbus. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's where I started.
I think it's funny, too, that you were a great ape keeper, because I always feel like you're either like a diehard, like great apes, it's your thing forever, or you definitely don't want to be a primate keeper.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in my case, sorry, Christy. In my case, back in Spain at least, both great apes and elephants are probably the species that get more attention. Saying that, that meaning that they get the training, and in general, you kind of spend more time interacting with them. So if it was not one of them, it was the other.
Right. So training's your thing, it sounds like.
Yeah,
You're very
yeah.
interested in that and like learning new things.
Yeah, mainly training, and actually specifically with elephants, I'm really into foot care, like
Oh, okay.
doing pedicure on those big legs, feet and nails. Yeah.
I love that. Well, Eric, would you mind telling us about our 3 females that we have now? And you can touch on Sabu, of course, if you want to explain that situation. But give us kind of a little bit of history with the elephants that we had before the Dublin.
Okay, so when I started, kind of as you mentioned before, we were free contact with our older females. If you've lived in Cincinnati any length of time, you know Mai Tai at least. She used to do a lot as far as going out of the zoo. One of my favorite pictures of her is with a big Reds hat in the opening day parade.
Yeah, she's a local legend.
She
really
kind of
is.
is. And she's 50 years old now, and she's still fantastic. So she's here along with Shotzi, whose full name is actually Princess Shotzi II. We just call her Shotzi. And she is 48. So they've been together most of their lives. And then Jody, who's the youngest, who's in her late 30s. And she actually came into the zoo with Sabu, our male, who's listed as just a year younger than she is. So they've all been here most of their lives. They have traveled some for breeding alone. This is quite a while ago. And as you mentioned, we are now what's called protected contact, or PC, which means there's always a physical barrier between the keeper and the elephant, and a big part of that is just keeper safety. Elephants are very large, and they can move a lot quicker than people think, so just to kind of take away any element of accidents happening, there's that separation.
I feel like zoos are becoming more safety conscious as a whole, in every animal area, like, over the years, just in my short time here. Like, there's been changes, and of course, elephants can be very dangerous if they want to be.
Yes,
so.
exactly. And so I had always worked around Sabu, who had always been in that protected contact since I started. Being a male, they can be a little more unpredictable in their behavior. So when we made that transition to our entire program being protected contact, we already had some base in it working around Sabu. And it definitely brings its challenges. The training has to be better. And I actually enjoyed it. I felt it made the keepers better. And it made us work a little bit harder to accomplish the same things. And I think you can still have those relationships with the animals that you care for, just like any keeper. I'm sure if you ask them, those relationships with the animals that they care for are important. So yeah, as you mentioned, Sabu's now in Columbus. He went last November up, kind of listed as a breeding loan. They have 3 females there. So I like to tell people he went and met some new girlfriends.
Which is really important because he's, we've talked about the species survival plan, and genetically he's really important to Asian elephants and zoos.
Correct. He is unrepresented as far as zoo populations. But
Mai Tai and Shotzi are past reproductive age.
Yes. Both of them are or post-reproductive in their age. Kind of the cool thing, too, to me as well, Columbus has a young calf named Frankie. Is 2?
Yeah.
2 years old. And one of the decisions Columbus made was to put Sabu with Frankie and his mom. And Sabu's been great.
That's awesome.
Frankie takes naps under him.
Oh my gosh.
No way.
And so what that told us is kind of everything we wanted to know as we move forward. As Carlos will talk about later with the new elephants, there are 2 younger boys that came in, 5 and 6. And it gives us hope that Sabu will continue to be able to establish a nice relationship and teach them how to be bull elephants and have manners and all the things that we're hoping to accomplish.
Yeah, because Sabu's super respectful with
That's
females.
such good news.
He responds appropriately, and he's not a bully. And the 2 boys that just came in need to learn that. So that'll be cool.
They need a male elephant in their life to teach them some things. And it's great to know that Sabu will likely do really well with that. And you don't have to worry quite as much about like any aggression or something scary happening.
And not to skip ahead too much, but there will be a point where all 4 of those elephants, Sabu, Jody, Mai Tai, and Shotzi, will move down the hill, and we will hopefully have one large integrated herd. So that's exciting as well.
That'll be incredible, and also I'm sure a ton of work and preparation going in, and nerves and all sorts of things. Before we hear about the new elephants, I was hoping, Christy, I know you were, I'm sorry, when did you start here? I don't know what year that was.
Wow.
Do you know what year it was?
For that question.
In the last 4?
I think it's been 4 years
4
now.
years?
4 years in August.
So you have training experience and the calf and like all of that, and I know just Eric mentioned the difference in training from free contact to protected contact is a little bit different, and you had a lot of training experience, and I know you've done some cool things. I was hoping you'd touch on like Mai Tai's yoga, maybe,
Yeah.
or any of your favorite training highlights, or just go a little bit about elephant training.
Yeah, that sounds good. So with the transition into protected contact, it's very, we like to say choice and control. So the elephant has the choice to participate, and they have a little bit more control over what's going on. And funnily enough, I found that they're more likely to participate.
It's like a toddler.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah, so for Mai Tai specifically, she's very healthy, but she's getting up in age. Elephants can have a lot of health problems that humans do as you get older, like arthritis and things. So to get ahead of that, we started an exercise program. She knows how to downward dog. She can pick up and carry logs just to build strength. She does a lot of like foot lifts, and I kind of like to. Elephant yoga is very, very descriptive, yeah. So, and that was all trained PC, so we used targets, and I just kind of tapped it on the ground and had her like inch her feet forward. And we kind of rolled that through the whole herd. So actually, Shotzi, I think it's helped a lot.
That's awesome.
She kind of gets stiff in her shoulders, but if you keep up on her exercise, you notice a huge difference. The team together, we all trained some pretty big behaviors with Sabu. That was very exciting.
And you mentioned that Mai Tai and Shotzi, they're in their late 40s, early 50s, right? What would you expect for like a typical elephant lifespan? Like,
it's kind of a huge range.
Okay.
There's like a very small handful of elephants in the U.S. that are above 70. So that's possible, but I kind of think of that as like a human over 100. It happens,
too,
just
yeah.
like not frequently.
it's an outlier. Yeah.
So if Mai Tai makes it to 60, we're doing great. So I'd be very pleased with that.
And hopefully the yoga, I mean, that's a key to long life right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's a rock star. She's super flexible. She's the oldest and the most flexible. So
The cutest.
yeah, very, very cute.
Not
she
that Jenna's
tries so
biased or
hard.
anything.
I know maybe it's me making things up, but I swear she likes it. Like she gets really excited and pumped, and if
I
you bring
believe
your
that.
energy up, she matches you.
That's so fun.
Whereas, and they're so individual, like Jotty, if you bring your energy up, she kind of just looks at you like, I don't care.
That's one of my favorite things is they all have personalities. And like Jotty, I don't know. Again, I was just a seasonal and it was years ago. But in my mind, Jotty's like the smartest or like the most ornery.
I could see
Those
that.
often go together, though.
Right, yes. Like, would you guys agree with that? Or do you see, like, say a little bit about their personalities?
No, I
guess.
definitely agree. Kind of as you mentioned, Mai Tai in particular, she loves people. She loves to be around people. Shotzi is an excellent elephant. Sometimes she needs to work on being a little more confident. If she's unsure of something, you have to kind of work with her a little bit more and be a little more patient.
Mm-hmm.
But once she understands, she's great.
Yeah, for like vet procedures, if you give her time, like when she comes into the training area, if you give her the time to eyeball everybody, she checks out the bench because she's so tall. We have to stand on a bench. Same bench every single time, but every time she touches it and smells it. And then she's like, okay, I'm good. And then she participates. But if you kind of like try to rush her, then it kind of falls apart. So,
Which is so important, getting to know your animals and knowing
Yeah.
like their needs. And
Yeah,
how
I mean,
that-
there's definitely, it helps with training, and you both have worked around animals as well. You know, picking up those things makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely.
But I do agree with your assessment. Jotty is the smartest of the females.
and if she knows she can play games with you, she does.
Yes, fair. Even in training, she will try to get away with doing the smallest amount of work she can and still get something. So it's kind of a back and forth. But I do think with that intelligence, she enjoys problem solving. She enjoys being engaged. And so it is our responsibility on that to keep that going and to give her that mental stimulation through training or enrichment to keep her active.
Yeah, definitely. And training is one of the best ways, to
Yeah.
enrich an animal's life. So I think that's awesome. You guys are doing all sorts of new stuff and the
Yeah.
yoga. I want to see Shotzi do yoga.
It's pretty cute.
And I have been getting some questions from guests. So just to clarify, our current girls, they're still at the quote-unquote old elephant house.
Correct.
They're not going to be moving for a little while down to the new home.
It will probably be early next year.
Okay.
So currently, the barn itself and one of the yards is completed that we're using for the new 4.
Okay.
But we wanted to wait until all the construction was complete, especially the 2 large yards that we're adding on as well, so that when all the elephants are there, they all have access to plenty of space and not cramped in one spot. And the lucky thing is we have both facilities on grounds. We split our team in half, and we go back and forth, so we're not solely in one place.
I guess that's a whole story in itself too, about how your team is going through a ton of changes right now.
But again, I love the challenge, and I think most of our team does. So we've had to learn on the fly some of the things, but definitely it's been fun.
So currently we have 3 females in what we call the Elephant House. And it's like kind of the iconic building that is actually on the National Historic Registry, or I don't know if that's the right word, but we that'll always be at the zoo, and we can't do too many like changes to it. And then the new elephants are what we're calling Elephant Trek.
Correct.
And that'll be opening hopefully spring, summer of 2024.
I think summer is what I've heard, but I've never honestly heard of
a
date.
Under promise, you know. We'll say summer of 2024, Elephant Trek, and we'll have some other animals joining that area. But also, like we've mentioned, we've kind of been building up to it, but we have 4 new elephants from the Dublin Zoo. Carlos is here because he has a relationship with those elephants. He helped get them ready and prepare them to come here, and they are currently living at Elephant Trek. The elephant team is split into 2, but before we get into like that crazy how we now have 4 elephants all the way from Dublin, can you tell us their names and a little bit about them, their ages, their personalities, if you have any stories about those?
Yeah, so as you were saying, there's 4 elephants, part of a bigger family. Their names, so it's 2 adult females, and 2 little boys. What we could call the matriarch of that little group would be Jasmine. Okay. She's just over 30 years old now. She's a really calm and nice elephant. She cares a lot about the whole family, the other 3. She's kind of in charge at the end, no? So she needs to keep an eye on everything that's going on around. It's quite funny because, as you've mentioned, Eric, they're still doing some jobs in the new barn, and every now and then you can hear the workers doing some noises, and she's kind of curious but wary about what's going on, and she will always check what's happening before doing anything else. So that would be Jasmine, and then we have Anak. She's over 20 years old now. She's the other adult female, and her personality is quite different to Jasmine, but I'll have to say here now that I've found some difference on the behavior of the 4 of them from what they were at Dublin and how are they behaving now. And I'm glad to see that they are in general calmer. It might be because this last year back at Dublin Zoo it has been quite hectic, so we've been going through a lot of training, we've been doing a lot of things. We actually split them from the other little part of the family, from the females that are still at Dublin Zoo. So there was a lot of big changes for them, no? But I'm really happy about how they're doing here so far. What I've seen, I'm really happy for them. And then we have the two little calves, the 2 boys, Kavir and Sanjay. They're 5.5 and 6 years old. Really nice boys, really nice little bull elephants. And Kavir, as it's been mentioned before, he's super solid. He's always up for everything. He'll be super happy to interact and train with you, and he'll try and do his best to to succeed in whatever you're asking him for, right? Quite a calm elephant, like his mother. And on the other hand, we have Sanjay. So they're quite similar to their mothers, right? And Anak, Sanjay's mother, is also, or used to be also, a slightly more nervous elephant. Opposite to Jasmine, she will always look for, let's say, she'll try her best to just get away with not coming to you straight away, or not fully doing the behavior that you're asking her for. And in general, she's slightly more nervous, and so is Sanjay. So Sanjay, again, he's a really nice elephant, little elephant, and he's super wary of everything, everyone. New things for him are such big things. I like to say something sometimes, and don't get me wrong with this, in my son, but he's not. He's such a baby. Sometimes when Kabir will just do whatever you ask him to, or even when meeting a new person training him, he will just go for it, do it, no problems at all. And on the other hand, Sanjay, for example, when we work on trunk washes or even a feet presentation, if there's a new person coming to him to touch his feet, he'll be looking at you, probably thinking, who are you and what are you trying to do? But then at the end, he normally just kind of falls into the game, and he's really good. And actually, I've told the team these last few days that he's probably the one that has changed more from Dublin Zoo to here. And I'd like to say that he has grown up a little bit, and he's not that little baby anymore. He's still sometimes that little baby, but he's doing really good. The four of them, I'm super happy because the four of them are doing really good.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
We had 2 Dublin keepers here for 2 weeks, and then there was like a few days before Carlos got here. And the day after the first 2 left, I walked up to Sanjay and asked him to come work for me, and he came and targeted and just stood there with me. And the minute I asked him for anything else, he's like, no. And just walked off like, I don't know you.
I don't know you. Have you noticed a difference in the last 2 weeks? He's like getting to know you guys more, and I mean that speaks to their intelligence too, right? As they can recognize people and know who they know, and
yes, it's been much slower, but he's doing things now, and he's like, okay, we're acquaintances at least.
I think one of the fun things I've noticed about just the dynamics of them being a herd and a family group is some of those times when Sanjay gets nervous, he runs to grandma. And mom's off eating, like, no, he's your problem now. But she's very calming. And so I think that actually helps us in the long run, that she can kind of help him settle down, and then he can then become a little more engaged and a little more willing to work.
So Anik is Jasmine's daughter?
Yes.
Okay. So they're definitely all, like, there's herds, but they're made up of all different, like, aunts and babies and moms, and there's a matriarch, as you guys mentioned. So that's Jasmine, and I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on, like, we're going to introduce 3 other females. I don't know if there's a true matriarch, considering we don't have calves and that sort of thing, or if you guys consider one of them to be the matriarch. But how do you think that'll go? What are your thoughts? Will Jasmine take the lead?
Well, that's our hope.
Yes.
and we did have those discussions with Dublin, and Carlos and some of the other keepers have said Yasmin's always been, because being the oldest.
Sorry.
Yep. And and so that's our hope, that she will kind of solidify things. And it was intentional. The zoo wanted that nucleus family group to for us to move ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, these 4 elephants were purposefully selected because of their bond and their family unit.
Correct. That they were together. And, as zoos have evolved and become better, it's that all those fields have improved, or all those animal types of care for all these animals has improved. And with elephants in particular, we've learned that you will get a healthier group, a more resilient group when you can move those family nucleuses. And so that was the hope, and I think we've seen that it's true. Like Carlos had mentioned before.
Yeah, I think one of those, one of the big success of this movement has been, as I was saying, the whole family, well, all part of a big family together, but keeping the nucleus intact. Because if when moving moving together to Cincinnati Zoo and this new facility, they're more keen, they're more in, they'll buy more into being in a new place, as if you just split them separate and you just bring them to a new place and where are we now? Where am I now? So at least they have their moms, their grandma, they're all still together.
And we're really seeing like an example of a real matriarch. It means more than I'm the biggest, so I get the most food. For example, as you can imagine, we've been very closely monitoring them since they moved here, and overnight Yasmin was the last to lay down because she's the matriarch, so she was just keeping an eye on everything. So it was like the boys would lay down first and then Anik, and you would always just see Yasmin still like keeping in her eye, just so like that's what a matriarch does.
Yeah, I think that'll be so amazing for you guys get to experience the difference in this, and also like see it all, and then hopefully, I mean, they'll all get along, and hopefully it'll all work out perfectly. But I'm sure it's really nerve-wracking. Yeah, and there's a lot.
There are definitely a lot of moving parts and a lot of personalities. I look at it as a work environment almost. You're bringing all these people together with the hope that they'll all get along, and that doesn't always happen, but we're hoping Sabu being involved in this will help as well. We talked earlier about like his role with the boys, hopefully his role in producing calves. But we hope that he kind of also helps along with Yasmin to tie these groups together.
So I think it's interesting you mentioned like they were picked for a reason, and I had two questions about that. One, how is the herd in Dublin doing? Was that like difficult for them, for their herd mates to leave? Have you like noticed or heard if they're like?
So we thought about that a lot in the past. So what was the best way of doing it? Because obviously you're at the end you're splitting a big family. But so in out there in the wild, the elephants also build big families all together, from like the matriarch with all her sons and daughters, males to a certain age, obviously. But they also split and go back together depending on their resources that they have access to. So we thought, and they split into smaller families, right? So we thought it was going to be the best way of doing it was going to be splitting them in these two little families that we have. So we have on one side, we have Jasmine as the matriarch of now the Cincinnati Zoo group. And then on the other side we have Dina, that's Jasmine's sister, and with all her daughters, and granddaughters. So at the end, we try to replicate what would happen out there. Okay, so hoping that it doesn't affect them that much. And this happened like a year and a half ago already. And yeah, at the beginning, and during the process, they did have visual access to each other group on the big habitats outside in Dublin, and they would come to the gate and kind of touch each other. But it's true that with time, those interactions did reduce a little bit, and even if they could see each other, I think they both were feeling quite comfortable with the situation, and at the end, well, we like to think that helped through the process.
Yeah. Of course, yeah, it wasn't rushed. This was all really well thought out and planned for so much longer than even working here than I realized. And some people might be asking, though, like, why Dublin? Why not a zoo from the U.S.? Is it genetics? Is it the availability? Is it...
My personal opinion is it's just a lot of those things kind of all work together. Cincinnati and Dublin developed a really close relationship, and discussions and what was going to fit. And this move not only helped us jumpstart our program, it alleviated some space for the Dublin group, who's going to welcome a bull in coming up to continue their success.
Oh, awesome.
And most U.S. zoos are not moving reproductively aged females. Most U.S. zoos are trying to breed into the multi-generational herds. So anymore, it's not happening very often.
Yeah, and I guess it makes it more difficult when you do want to keep animals together as a herd and a family, but also you still have to move animals to keep them in zoos without bringing animals in from the wild. So there's all of that. You mentioned earlier herd birth. Will you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so as we know, zoos have evolved a lot. So it wasn't common practice for elephants to give birth in a herd like they would do in the wild. It used to be a much more controlled environment where the mother might be by herself. So moving forward, there's some zoos that are trying to do a herd birth, which would be what happens in the wild, where elephants are social learners. So daughters would get a chance to see mothers go through that and know what it's about. So when they then have their own chance to give birth, they kind of know what it's all about and they know what to do. So in Albuquerque, we had 3 generations. The grandmother Alice, the mother Rose, and the calf Jasmine. And we built a brand new barn just for the specific purpose of being able to have this herd birth happen. And it was one of the coolest things to see. So we did do a lot of training leading up to it because we didn't want to just be sitting there if anything went wrong. We trained Rose to be able to bring us the baby in case something was wrong. We trained Jasmine, who was 6 and acts like a 6-year-old, to go into like a little calf space in case we had to enter the space to help the calf. And none of it was needed in the end. It went perfectly. Rose gave birth to a little bull, and it was the coolest thing to see because Jasmine, as a 6-year-old female calf, got to see her mother do it. Grandma Alice kind of kept her back and gave Rose space, walked her up to see the calf, and then when Rose told her she needed her space, Alice walked Jasmine away.
Wow,
again.
that gave me goosebumps. That's so cool.
One of the coolest things ever to be a part of. And these 2 females from Dublin are experienced in that.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. They know their jobs. So I expect it to go the same. It was really cool.
That'll be amazing.
So, Carlos, when you guys gave birth in Dublin, were those herd births or were they separated out for birth?
Well, as I told you at the start, I haven't been there for those births, so I'm pretty sure they were herd births, but so I wasn't working there by that time, so I can't really answer your question.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
So, this is all really exciting. I feel like we're going to have to do a whole nother episode when you guys are starting these intros, and I have so many questions. But I know there's probably a lot of people wondering what went into it to literally move them here. Do they take a bus, a plane, a train? Like, I know it's a lot. So, Eric, and also for relationship building, which I think will be one of the coolest things. You're going to, that's my favorite part about the job, is getting an animal to trust you and, earning their trust. And so you guys will have all that fun with, these new 4 elephants. But you've been going to Dublin over the past, and you've went, right?
Yeah.
Christy? To get to know them a little bit and get to know the keepers and see what they're about. Will you tell us a little bit about your experiences there? If you've noticed any wild differences, do we run things differently? And then we need to hear about how they actually were transported here.
So really quickly, because I kind of forgot to mention it earlier, and I just think this is such a cool little fun fact. After the fact that we learned who these elephants were that were coming, and a little bit of background. So Shotzi, the elephant that we have, is actually Yasmin's aunt.
That is such a small world.
Yeah, what are the odds of that?
And
how does this work?
It is honestly one of those weird little happy accidents that, that was not taken into account or any of the things. It just happened
Did
to
they
be.
get to spend much time together? I know Shotzi was young when she
Shotzi left before the birth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So they haven't met. It's not like they'll have this long lost
Right.
reunion.
Yeah.
And oh, that'd be really cool. Though. What if they can just tell?
But I mean,
I
it
wouldn't be
does in a
surprised.
weird way kind of make this a 4-generation herd.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, that's
Um,
really cool.
But anyway, I'm sorry. Back to the,
No,
the
I'm glad you
question
shared
you
that.
asked. So yeah, we started sending people over last year. The initial trip, which was early in 2022, was myself, Cecil Jackson, who's the elephant manager, and Christina Gorsuch, who's the curator of living collections. And that way we could meet the elephants, the keepers, kind of the zoo, and kind of get all that out of the way. I did a few separate trips, and also, as important, Christy got a chance to come over. The decision was kind of made early on that I would focus on the females, the adults, and Christy, because of her experience with calves, would kind of take on the role lead trainer for the calves.
Okay.
So we thought it was important that she go over there as well and work with the keepers and the elephants. And then this last trip where I went over, I was there for 4 weeks to just kind of be there to help with whatever they needed, relationship building with the elephants, but also the keepers, the move itself, and then I flew back on a cargo plane with the elephants and 3 of the Dublin keepers.
Okay. Did you notice any differences in how like zoos are run or any like?
There's a lot of similarities.
Okay.
I would say that trying to handle 2 targets at one time was. I'm a very clumsy person. So.
Because basically they are both training at the same time with you.
Yeah. Well, no. So it's 2 targets for 1 elephant.
Oh, so they just
So-
train differently.
Yeah.
like they
so
use
like
different.
the training's
Oh, okay.
different.
Yeah, that would be hard.
We're getting used to it now. It just was at first a lot of fumbling and trying our best.
Yeah.
Real quick, I just want to say, I think the thing that the philosophies may be a little bit different, but I was surprised at how much is the same with the nuts and
Yeah.
bolts of training. The same behavior may have 2 different names, but at
what's
the
the
end,
same?
it's the same behavior.
Yeah.
And so some of it is just learning that, and I think that's what, for me at least, was important, being around Carlos and the other keepers to see the nuance
Right.
of what would help with this transition.
And kind of translate like what their behaviors would look like for us at our zoo.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little bit, yeah. And like I said, the nice thing was once you learn the verbiage, you realize like, oh wait,
Can you give us
It's-
an example?
Yeah, well, so one of the positions we put an animal into, or the elephants, is have them stand up next to the barrier so that we can inspect their body, interact with them if we need to. And we've always said, lean in. And so the exact same behavior there is just called side.
Oh, okay. And
So
it makes total sense.
Yeah, and
but
it's
just different.
it's just the same thing, a different name. The really nice thing, though, is with elephants being as intelligent as they are, we will be able to transition into using the verbiage that we use with all of our elephants eventually, to where they'll just learn to understand, like, okay, side and lean in are the same.
Yeah.
And so the long-term hope is that we can use all the same language with all of the elephants that we have.
Animals are so impressive. I don't know how they ever get what we're asking for. I'm like, here, Fiona, I'm touching your hip with the target. You should lean in. Just lean in. And she's like, all right. And now she just walks in a certain area of the, holding. And she's like, I'll just lean in right here. So, yeah, they're so impressive. So basically, there were years worth of work and effort and discussions going into this. When it came to actually moving the elephants, how did that go? I don't know who actually would like to start with that.
I can just go off on my part, and then you can kind
Yeah.
of do yours.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
my role there was a little more observing and then kind of helping out wherever they needed me during the day of the move. It was a very long day. Thankfully, Dublin did a lot of training and work with the elephants. So they understood and were comfortable going into their crates. Because when you're dealing with an animal that big and the crates are as big as they are, you're talking about trucks and cranes, police escorts to the airport, a giant cargo plane.
Sorry, can you give everybody an idea of weights? Like, how big are these elephants and these crates? I'm sure a couple thousand pounds.
Yeah. So Jasmine was just over.
She's almost 9,000.
Oh well, yeah. We're gonna come now into this discussion on pounds and
kilograms.
But yeah, basically, Jasmine was over 4,000 tons, so that would be probably around 9,000 pounds.
Yeah.
A big lady, obviously. Anna was just slightly light in her hair, probably just below those 4 tons, so below 8,000 pounds, probably. And the 2 boys were just over 2,000 kilograms, so that would be 4,000 pounds, more or less. So that's kind of it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the boys are about 4,000, 5,000 pounds maybe, and the girls are 8,000, 9,000.
So each of the elephants went into their own crate, and then they were secured, lifted by a crane, put on trucks. Each of the girls had their own truck. The boys shared because they were a little bit smaller. And it was a lot of work. It was a long day. I applaud Dublin and their keepers. And like I said, my role was a little more secondary. These guys did all the heavy lifting. I guess there's a joke there somewhere. And so, but it was awesome to see like their team came together even when there were like, minor adversities and things like that, and they knew what to do and they did it. A lot of this credit goes to them and that team.
I know nerves are always heightened on days like this when you're moving an animal and you're trying to get them for literally a specific time at the airport. Like, it's not just when it happens, it happens.
Right.
Like, you have a
There is
timeline.
a big plane waiting for you.
Yes, it adds so much, like, pressure.
We didn't even have to deal with the TSA.
And the elephants, like, chose to go in the crates on their own, and then it's a ton of moving them from there. So it's like all the machinery from, a crate to a truck to an airport. What happens at the airport? Like, what goes on? Do you have to talk to a bunch of people?
If I can say something before goes to the airport part, because I wasn't there. But first of all, I want to give a really big credit to the whole team back in Dublin. I'm just the lucky one one of the lucky ones that got to come here. But as you've said, Eric, I think the whole team worked really good all together, not only for a day, but for a year and a half. So we've been training for these different parts of it, but we've been training even from splitting the families towards the day of the transport. There's been a lot going on. So I think everyone within the team did a really good job, and even in the day of the transport, we started like 7 a.m, training at probably around 9, and we finished the day at the zoo at around 9 o'clock. So that was around 12 hours to get them on the truck. Sorry. So as you were saying, a lot of things going on. We had plan A, B, C, D, E, F.
Which is so smart. I didn't even think about that. Like, you have to know, if this doesn't work out, we need this plan.
That's it.
And, yeah.
Lucky for us, there was really little issues through the day, and we got the job done almost as we intended at first. And when they got to the airport, I'll leave Eric to that.
I will say, I think what needs to be understood that maybe, even for me was surprising is how slow this process has to happen. Even once the elephants are in their box or crate, a crane has to be set up, which takes almost an hour just for that crane to set up because they're so big. And then each crate lifted up, you have all the safety guidelines and everything put on a truck, strapped to this truck. Just a very long day.
Each crate has to be like what, the size of a tractor trailer? Like
the adults definitely were a
Yeah.
little smaller than that, or a little shorter, but height and everything, yeah, they're pretty substantial. And so then you have your trip to the airport. Then we kind of sat there for a bit. It was kind of nice. The Dublin Zoo worked very closely with the Dublin airport. So we were given an indoor hangar, basically,
Oh, wow.
or a warehouse type place. So we were able to get in out of the elements.
awesome.
And all the crates were put on little carts that they
gosh.
drove, almost like what you see when the little carts that pull the luggage kind of thing.
But they're
Just
pulling an
much
elephant.
bigger.
Yeah, and then we kind of sat in this indoor spot for a bit while the plane landed, unloaded, got ready for us, reloaded, because honestly, we weren't the only cargo on this plane.
Wow. Were you the only animal cargo on the plane?
I believe so. The only ones I saw.
It's also incredible to imagine, like, a plane that can fit 4 elephants on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And I feel like, and this might be off a little bit, like, we weren't even half of the cargo.
wow. I just can't imagine.
Yeah, it was in just really impressive. But yeah, we sat there. They pulled us out. They had a lift that basically each kind of cart drove onto,
Okay.
lifted us up with the elephants,
Yeah.
and like kind of rolled them on like a little conveyor onto the plane, and they strapped them all down. And yeah, like it took a long time, but it was impressive to watch.
I bet.
I got to learn that there's a guy whose position is the load master, and he basically is in charge of strapping down everything into a cargo plane. I was like, not a responsibility I want to have.
I'll say pretty important job right there. My goodness.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Now, just in case someone was wondering, through the whole process, when the elephants were in the crates, obviously you still need to keep an eye on them and take care of them. So make sure that they have food, they have water, even the heaters, right? That day in Dublin was quite cold.
Okay.
So we had the heaters pointing towards the crates. During during the whole process, and when the crates were on the trucks, the heaters were on the trucks too, and those heaters were moved to the airport, so they were nice and warm all the time.
Yes, really well taken care of, and we had vet. Dr. Mike went with you guys, right?
Yeah, so they had one of their vets
Okay.
come with us, and also the Cincinnati Zoo vet went over as well. So, yeah, we had a total of 3 of their keepers, 1 of their curators, myself, Dr. Mike, sorry, and 1 of their vets. So they were very well cared for.
Yeah, definitely.
And so once everyone was kind of strapped in, the plane took off. We actually had a really nice area on the seating, and it's actually the same seating that the crew would use. So I don't know, maybe 20, 25 seats.
Okay.
And then every hour, a pair of us would go down into the cargo hold, get a visual check on each of the elephants, give them some food if they wanted it, offer them water, and just kind of make a general health check.
What were they eating during the trip? Were they getting like Biscoff cookies or like?
So we brought along a skid of food. So the bulk of it was hay.
Okay.
But also they get grain, and we brought fresh produce. Sometimes they like that a little bit better, and so it kind of like it's a stressful situation,
Yeah.
not just for the people but the elephants as well.
But they were accepting food at times, which
Yeah.
is always a good sign, at least in
Yes.
my mind. Like, if an animal's willing to eat, they can't be that stressed. I mean,
Right.
they can be stressed, but,
Right.
like, you would know
Yeah,
they wouldn't eat if they were overly
I
stressed.
would say
guess I
early
should say.
on, because during the loading onto the trucks and the trip to the airport, once we got to the airport, things slowed down. And that's when you saw them settle a bit. And that's when they started to take food and things like that. So, but you're correct. Once you see them eat, that's a positive. So yeah, and basically it was just babysitting 4 elephants until we landed in Cincinnati.
Was everyone here at the airport, like, really excited? Or can you tell, like,
Well, there was a contingent of zoo folks there kind of waiting on us,
Okay.
and they had trucks for us on this side waiting.
Did you say it was like a 9-hour flight?
Yeah, it was about 9 hours.
Okay.
And the nice thing was, with having that many keepers, we were able to take turns so you could get some sleep, knowing that like every other shift you didn't have to do, someone else would.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really cool experience. I think I'm okay not doing it again, but it was amazing to be
Yeah.
part of that one time.
And then you have to do everything backwards, right? So then you get them off the plane, they load onto new trucks here, get craned onto new trucks.
Yes.
Yes, and then craned off of trucks once they get to the zoo.
Correct.
Yeah.
At
How
the
long
new
did
barn.
that unloading process take?
It took a few hours again because everything just has to be very calculated. It's not like, putting a small animal in a sky kennel and
Right.
and
Just
just
get the
them
kennel
off.
up, yeah.
Yeah.
Back in, like,
around
semi-
noon.
I believe so.
So they landed around noon. We did not leave the zoo until like 7:30.
Okay.
That night.
Yeah.
So that was a stressful. I know that you guys had your own stressful side, but on our side it was a brand new building that had never had animals. So we
Right.
were like frantically going through like this locks, this door's closed. Like everything was lining up.
All the last minute checks.
Yeah.
And,
It
yeah.
had been a construction site until literally the day before.
Right. And zoo construction's always a little bit longer than you expect it to be. We should know by now. But weather really impacts things.
And you did mention we had a police escort, right? From the
Both
airport
ways,
to get to
yeah.
the zoo, yeah.
I'm sure that people were thrilled to have the highway shut down for a bit.
Wow,
the day,
you had to shut down the
day of a
highway?
Bengals game.
Oh my gosh.
It was for
But-
good reason. It was for
Yeah,
good
right.
Why did it have to be shut down? What am I missing?
Just the concern was like if they were to get split, if you were to get stuck in traffic, like all the aspects of just wanting to control as much as we
Okay.
could.
That makes sense.
Um,
Yeah. There's a lot of bridges you wouldn't want to get stuck
Yeah,
on one of
yeah.
those from the airport.
But I have to really show my appreciation to the Dublin Zoo on their side. They did an excellent job. But even the Cincinnati Zoo, people at the airport, they were ready to go. We had even brought in a few elephant people from other institutions that had been part of moves before for just extra people to talk about things and make sure we're ready. The collaborative effort of the Dublin keepers that came over and then the keepers here, because that's an odd situation. And so there had to have been a lot of like working together to kind of discuss, how do we get them out? Where are we going to put them after they're out? Like what order we're going to, like there was a lot of those things that worked as well as can be expected. But it was a lot of work, but well worth it.
Good. When the elephants got here, and you opened the door for their crates, did they rush out? Were they hesitant? Were they...
Kind of depended on the elephant, and it played into the personalities that Carlos talked about. Sanjay wanted to stay in his crate.
It's safe here.
He backed out, and you kind of saw him peek behind him, and he was like, "No, I'm good." And just walked right back in and started eating.
What was he eating?
So he took quite a long time to coax out, but Yaz and Kabir came right out.
Okay.
And then Anik was the first off, and I think she came off pretty readily.
Yeah, she was kind of ready to see what the next step was going to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to see what they'll do, and oftentimes they have to back out. So it's kind of, that would be a little...
Unnerving.
Yeah, for sure. As a person.
I do think what really kind of helped us in the long run, too, is, again, back to that nucleus family group, is Anik was unloaded first, and when Sanjay did eventually decide to come out, they were put together immediately, and they were able to console each other, just kind of help them relax. And then as they all came off, they were all put together overnight, and we just kind of let them go to settle in,
Relax.
and get
I
to
can't
learn.
believe how fast they seem to settle in. I think moving them as a family just insanely helped. They settled down way quicker than I expected.
That's good.
That's
That's great.
awesome.
Yeah, it makes sense, honestly. Like, if you're going somewhere new with your family, you're going to be more comfortable than
Yeah.
showing up by yourself and not knowing anyone.
Were the elephants like communicating at all through the trip? Like,
Oh,
were
I'm
they vocalizing to each other?
A little bit of vocalization, not as much as I would have expected, but elephants do communicate using infrasounds, which is below human hearing. So I'm convinced there was a whole lot of complaining going on back and forth.
Well, so this is so interesting, and I feel like I could go on for another hour. But for the sake of time, is there anything else you thought was really interesting or you wanted to share? Or, I mean, I do really think we'll probably have you guys back to give us more information when there's, there's going to be so much more to hear about. Not only just hearing the 4 elephants as you guys get to know them and the training you're doing, but then all the introductions and the new area, all of that. But was there anything else you wanted to mention about the move or the training or...
One last little thing for me is I think this move showed how important training is. Mm-hmm. Without this training, this move is a lot harder to do. I've always kind of joked, like, I can't make an elephant do anything it doesn't want to do.
Exactly.
So by having them trained, by having them comfortable and confident, so much of this was just easily done. Well, maybe not easily done, but done.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's important, like, obviously, things have evolved a ton, and we're learning so much more about training. Things that used to be trained with elephants weren't necessarily for their benefit or health reasons. It was, enriching to them, but, like, picking up something or, being willing to wear a hat for a Reds game. Super cute. I'm so glad we have that photo, but, like, not necessarily for a specific reason. And now we're moving towards that with so many animals and just, like, medical behaviors or... their happiness or their stretching ability, their flexibility, and all of that sort of thing. So, obviously, building a relationship with an animal and them being willing to walk into their own crate when they're 9,000 pounds, it makes our jobs and their lives so much less stressful, and it's really important. So, I look forward to hearing about the more training you guys are doing, and baby elephants. Sabu has to arrive. They have to be introduced, and then it's a 22-month gestation period. So, it'll be a little while, right?
Well, I'll throw out there, you guys are always welcome to come visit.
Don't say that, because I'm, like, dying. I've never seen I know they're not babies, but I've never been close to, like, a young elephant. I'm dying. I'm like, is the Elephant House going to be hiring in, like, 3 years? Could I leave? No. But great. Well, if you guys don't have anything else you wanted to add,
I just want to, again, thank you two for having us.
Thanks for being here. Yeah. It's great to hear your side of things.
Yeah, thank you to Cincinnati Zoo Elephant team and the rest of the keepers that I've been meeting these last few days, because they've been all really, really nice to me. And also, again, mentioning giving the credit to all Dublin Zoo team, the managers, from the curator to the Miguel Bueno to the team leader Kieran McMahon, and the rest of the team. I could mention them all, but they know who they are. So thank you very much for everything, and thank you guys.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thanks for being here. It's great, and hopefully you'll come back and see us again.
Yeah. I mean, they have to invite me, but
you can come anytime. Well, we will end on our question we always ask: what can I do?
So we're coming up on the holidays. I'm not sure when this will air, but I think it would be a cool idea to recycle newspaper and things instead of using wrapping paper. We have a lot of materials around our house already. Or saving gift bags and not buying new.
I think it's a great, really easy one. It's coming up. Or this, again, I should know, but I can't remember how many we have recorded when this will come out. But even if it's right after Christmas, you often have gift bags laying around. And I mean, I don't know if you guys grew up with your mom having like a container of gift bags, and it's like, oh, it's somebody's birthday. Let's go in the basement and find that box of gift bags.
Or if she ever caught a bow in the trash.
Yes. I'm glad it's not just me and my family, but save the gift bags, or like Christy mentioned, if you have newspaper at home, or sometimes the brown butcher paper even is just better for the earth. If you wanted to wrap something, you could buy that instead of the wrapping paper that isn't recyclable. Yeah. But yeah, with either coming up before Christmas or even right after Christmas.
It'll be the holiday season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Save it for next year. If you get those gift bags and boxes, you can... Do you guys have them? They're all folded up and they're hardly still attached at the corners, but you keep using them.
But they're still usable, yeah.
Well, yes, I love that one. Thank you for sharing. Thank you guys for being here and taking your time to be with us. And I'm gonna hit you up about the elephant visitation.
Yeah, we'll be there.
I
We'll
want to
be there.
visit all the elephants all the time. But
You're also welcome to Dublin.
I can't wait. Yes, I'll put that on the bucket list for travel too.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you guys so much again for joining us. Shout out to Dublin's team. Shout out to Cincy's elephant team. You guys are incredible, doing amazing work. Excited to see the elephants. And thank you guys for listening at home. Hopefully you learned as much as Jen and I did today, and you enjoyed it just as much as we did. So
There's a lot that went into that.
Yeah.
You guys did.
Until next time, everyone take care.
Thanks for listening.